Look around the world today, and you are confronted by two radically different realities. On one side, towering skylines and compounding wealth. On the other, sprawling settlements where daily survival is a struggle. Why do some nations break out into prosperity while others remain trapped in poverty? People usually reach for a single, obvious answer. They assume a wealthy country just hit the geographic jackpot, or found the right natural resources, or simply wrote better laws. But history shows us that having great soil or drafting a clever constitution is rarely enough on its own. National development functions as a layered architecture, a complex, stacked system where geography, human-made rules, technological capability, administrative strength, and political power must interact and align over centuries. Because this machine requires so many different moving parts to work in perfect sequence, escaping poverty is exceptionally difficult. Sustained wealth is not the default human condition. It is a rare, historically fragile achievement. The first layer of this stack is geography. Before the modern era, societies were severely constrained by their physical environment. Access to navigable rivers, moderate climates, and low disease burdens didn't automatically make a society rich, but they drastically lowered the costs of moving goods, growing food, and keeping populations healthy. But the physical map is only the starting line. There are plenty of regions with incredible mineral wealth and fertile land that remain impoverished, while nations with massive geographic disadvantages have built thriving economies. Institutions, the human-made rules governing property, contracts, and markets, decide if those natural conditions are utilized or wasted. If you want proof that rules matter more than terrain, look at Nogales. The climate and ecology are identical on both sides of this border. Yet the United States side has predictable property protection, while the Mexican side historically faced weaker public goods and unpredictable rules. The Korean Peninsula provides an even sharper test case. Two populations sharing the same deep historical background, language, and geography were split in half. South Korea eventually built a system rewarding private enterprise and global trade. North Korea installed a centralized command structure that suffocated market incentives. The result is one of the widest income gaps ever recorded. When institutions are designed purely to extract wealth rather than build it, the results echo for centuries. In Spanish America, colonial systems forced labor to pull silver from the earth. This created immense wealth for a tiny elite, but it actively suppressed broad-based innovation and property access for the wider society. You can have perfect coastal access and mountains full of valuable ore, but if the rules of your society are built to confiscate wealth instead of rewarding productive effort, those natural advantages are completely wasted. Even with excellent geography and fair rules, a society won't leap ahead by simply working harder. To get truly rich, you have to transition from linear labor to compounding productivity. You need technology. The introduction of the steam engine meant output was no longer limited by human or animal muscle. During the Industrial Revolution, applying machinery to textile production caused a massive drop in the human hours required to make a single piece of cloth. Growth became inextricably tied to continuous technological innovation, but existing technology doesn't just float across borders on its own. A nation has to actively build the educational and financial systems to absorb it. During the late 19th century, the Japanese state under the Meiji era didn't wait to slowly invent modern mechanics. They systematically imported foreign knowledge, trained personnel, and adapted those methods to their own factories. Because they built the capacity to learn and scale, Japan moved into a major industrial power, coordinating production on a massive level. Industrializing at scale requires state capacity, the administrative strength to enforce contracts, collect revenue, and maintain physical infrastructure. Without a government capable of building roads or sanitation and power networks, no market can sustain its growth. Technology gives a nation the mathematical blueprint for wealth. But without a capable state doing the heavy lifting of administration and infrastructure, that economy cannot physically function in the real world. This brings us to a frustrating puzzle. If the mechanics of growth, predictable rules, advanced technology, and administrative strength are well documented, why do so many governments actively resist adopting them? Because economic development changes the distribution of power. When you establish open markets and broad education, you create independent citizens and new business classes. And for entrenched ruling elites, that newfound independence is a direct threat to their monopoly on control. Look at historical Venice. For centuries, it was an unusually dynamic, commercially open maritime power. But eventually, the incumbent ruling class restricted entry to protect their own dominance. By prioritizing their immediate power over continuous innovation, they froze the system, and the city stagnated. We see the same logic in many resource-rich nations today. If a ruling class can finance its regime and reward its cronies entirely by pulling oil out of the ground, they have little incentive to cultivate a broad, highly educated tax base. They substitute industrial growth with simple, extractive rent-seeking. Remaining poor is often a deliberate, highly rational choice by those at the top. When mass prosperity threatens an elite's absolute control, they will choose political stagnation over progress. National prosperity is complex. Geography sets the initial costs of development. Institutions provide the incentives for people to work. Technology drives the compounding productivity. State capacity coordinates the infrastructure to scale it. And elites decide whether it is permitted to happen at all. It is an incredibly fragile system. Because these elements stack sequentially, breaking just one layer brings the whole process to a halt. If a state is too weak to collect taxes, or if elites deliberately sabotage new technologies to protect their monopolies, the progression stops cold. Ultimately, writing a better policy or discovering a new resource won't save a nation on its own. Development is an ongoing historical struggle over who actually gets to benefit from change. A nation becomes wealthy only when it manages to build a durable social order, one that consistently turns natural opportunities into growth that is immune to the sabotage of narrow interests.